Share, I guess.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to training session number 2. We are hosting it still virtually and in person. Hey, virtual people, can you hear us okay? Yeah? Okay.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Okay, as long as. So today we're gonna be focusing in on what to expect at World Youth Day. You get some more practical tips about how to prepare for what it means to be a pilgrimage director and headquarters staff, and what it means to kind of live a day in the life of those roles, especially living into them in the form and the reality of World Youth Day itself. We're also, so it's to kind of go over, Joni's gonna lead us in prayer here in a minute, and then, we've done introductions, so we're gonna do some icebreakers. There's gonna be a pop quiz from last time, so hopefully you all remembered or watched the video. And then, we're gonna dive in and talk, like I said, talk through the World Youth Day schedule, so you know what to expect and how to plan and what to anticipate when we talk about, you know, Rise Up and the papal welcome and those different things. Jenna's going to talk about a day in the life of a pilgrimage director, and kind of give you a sense, because whether you're a headquarters staff or you're a dedicated pilgrimage director, you'll probably fall into this role at some point and help execute all of these things. So it's applicable to everybody. Then we're gonna do some fun role play. So we're gonna, you'll see some improv skills from Jenna, John Paul, and I, and then we're gonna break you into small groups to kind of help yourselves practice some of the skills we're going to talk about. Then we're gonna have some discussion, updates, and then close in prayer together this evening. So we definitely want to keep on time and end at 9. So we appreciate you all being here, though. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Joni to start off with prayer, please.
Hello, people. I'm in person. Yay. So I chose the verso prayer for this one. We did the World Youth Day prayer in the last meeting, but I really wanted to do the Climb Higher prayer because I think it's so many of the themes in it manifest the things we need to be thinking of, whether we're pilgrimage directors or headquarters staff, just to kind of redirect our thoughts if we get tied up with logistics, to remember why we are accompanying people on this trip. So let's start together in prayer. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, as we embark upon this pilgrimage together, guide my steps. While I cannot anticipate every twist and turn ahead, I trust that you will lead me and strengthen me, inviting me to discover beauty in ways I cannot imagine. Give me the eyes to see your presence, the ears to hear your voice, and an open heart ready to learn from each person, place, and story that I encounter. Help me to look beyond myself and discover the world as you see it. Draw me closer to those around me. Encourage me to slow down, to let go of needless worry. Let my mind wander and my heart wonder at the unexpected, often ordinary ways you find. With this next step, no matter how small, meek, and humble, I show you my desire and my commitment, despite my imperfections, to answer your call, to come, follow me. The thirst after truth, justice, and love, and ultimately to always find my path back to you, my eternal home. Through the intercession of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, give me the strength, courage, and trust to discover everything that you have in store for me in this life and the next. Amen. Amen. In the name of the Father, Son, and Spirit.
Amen. Okay, so now it's pop quiz time.
All right, so we are going to do a Kahoot. So I'm going to steal the screen share from Stephanie. This is me channeling my inner high school teacher. So get ready, everyone. Also, I realize now that we sent this out in advance, so hopefully no one cheated and looked at the questions.
But hey, if you did, you're very resourceful. A good quality in a pilgrimage director. Do they need phones, Jenna?
All right, so friends, you are going to go to kahoot.it.
If you don't have a phone here.
Be a team.
Sure. I have my phone.
All right,
Oh, I have one.
kahoot.it, there is our game pin. If anyone needs to use my phone, let me know.
Yes.
Who joined as Mike?
Gonna be
Wait, what is the game pin, Jenna?
freaking icon. As long as we're still waiting. The brain one is a little weird. Oh, no.
Jenna, I think the game pin is hidden for us online.
What?
It's
Can-
like, or like, is it behind that link on the slideshow?
You can just,
Oh, it's never mind. You're looking at the wrong screen. This is, thanks for calling that out. One sec. I can find my mouse. Got it. Share. That better?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there we
Thank you.
go. Thank you for calling that out. There are also is Kahoot music. If you have ever spent any time in a classroom of any sort in the past 10 years, the theme song will be familiar to you. All right, we good? Everyone in? We have 11 participants. I'm not playing. Okay, we're good? All right, we're gonna get started. Let's go. All right,
For those of us who've never played Kahoot and don't even know what this is.
where there will be a question and you just have to select the answer on your phone.
So it'll be,
Who is the patron of World Youth Day 2023? Some of these are harder than others. All right, Our Lady of the Visitation is the patron of World Youth Day 2023.
There we go, Mike.
For context, if you are not currently employed by Verso Ministries, Mike Montalbano is our managing director, so he's not here. But, all right, what is the core focus of Verso Ministries? Bringing as many people on pilgrimage as possible, making lots of money to donate to help maintain and upkeep pilgrimage sites, running a modern entrepreneurial Catholic business, or facilitating encounters with Jesus Christ. There we go.
Making it more funny. Yes.
no.
All right, next question. Verso Alto means just keep swimming towards the mountain, God will provide, or to the heights. To the heights, yes.
To the height, but if you see to the mountain, you don't get it. Please.
All right, what is not an example of Verso's holistic vision of pilgrimage? Building a Christ-centered community with fellow pilgrims, encountering the sacred in the culture, food, and history, visiting 15 churches in one day, no time for other activities. There we go. Everyone got it.
This is my guy. I don't like him.
All right. Which pope started World Youth Day?
No. Actually, no, yes, good.
All right.
JP2, yay.
Who knows this time?
All right, true or false? At the catechesis sessions, you will be responsible for teaching your group theologically rigorous concepts.
I've been working on it.
False. All right, Stephanie, John Paul, and Jenna are not assigned to groups so that they can spend the week at Fatima praying, be available to support you, go to the beach, or grocery shop and prepare meals because we're responsible for feeding everyone.
Did you know?
True or false? Headquarters staff don't have any responsibilities unless John Paul gives you a specific job. That is false. John Paul might give you a specific job, but there's also other things you should be doing / will be doing.
Still number one.
All right, how are HQ and PDs different? HQ is all legit. All right, I'm gonna just read these. You all can read them. There's a lot of words here.
Really?
Nice. Yes, headquarters supports the needs across all groups, but PD is assigned to one specific group.
Andrew, moving up.
All right, where can you find detailed information regarding your role, responsibilities, and practical tips?
I mean, the Versa website's not a bad. No,
All right, question 11 of 12. The electronic version of the staff binder will be found. Yes, in a Google Drive folder that will be shared with you. If you said email, well, no one said email from Stephanie, but it will probably also be in an email from Stephanie. All right, last question. Choose the correct answer. The correct answer is all of the above. You are an integral part of making World Youth Day a success. Me, John Paul, and Stephanie are here to support and accompany you, and you are here because we believe that you all have incredible gifts to share. So, all right, here's the podium. Joni in third place. All right. All right. Thank you all for playing. Stephanie, feel free.
Yeah. And so what we wanted to do was just kind of give you a summary of what we've heard you guys asking, as well as like to note some things that like we are going to answer these questions for you. Rather than, I don't have dual screen, so I can't share and tell you, so I'm just gonna talk to you guys. You all had great questions. Some of you had questions about how do I handle such a large group, or how am I gonna navigate 2 groups? And we're gonna answer those questions throughout your training. You don't have to worry, we're gonna talk about that tonight. If you don't feel like you get the answer, make sure to ask us, because we wanna make sure that you get those. Like, hey, you still haven't answered it totally, let us know. Some other questions we got were a great one. Someone asked, like, so I read about sleeping underneath the stars at World Youth Day. And yes, you're gonna sleep outside with your programs. We're gonna talk about that today. Don't worry, we're gonna help you prepare for that, so you don't feel like you're like, wait, why do I have to bring, and how do I do that? And of course, there's always like exceptions to the rule. If there's like medical needs or things like that. So don't feel like you're like, I'm stuck outside and I can't be outside. I think some people talked about like how to address emergencies when dealing with large crowds, and especially like at World Youth Day. And Jenna is going to be at our next meeting talking about like a crisis management plan. about like that we're preparing and help you know how to deal with crisis management. If you don't already know, we'll give you some tips and feedback as well as concrete ideas of how to handle those situations. We're going to talk about kind of the meals and what they look like today as well. So that's a good question. You all are flying in at least a day early. Some are flying in 2 days early. And so you'll be in Lisbon. So for those questions that were like, how do I navigate a new city? Those are things that we're going to make sure that you get there and have time to explore. We're going to take you on the metro. We're going to send you on a scavenger hunt, actually, across the city. And whoever kind of gets the things will kind of win a prize, maybe. We'll see what you get. And other than your knowledge of how to get around Lisbon. We're going to talk a little bit today about like access to water and bathrooms and so forth. I know last time we talked about think fast, finding food, your water, your toilets, and your shade. And then we'll also talk about what it looks like to be responsible for people throughout the day, as well as what your responsibilities are kind of on call, if you will, on a basis. So Jenna's going to cover that when we talk about what it's like a day in a life of a PD and so forth. And then a lot of your other questions, if you're specific about like, oh, like what's my group going to be like? What is going to be my groups? We are scheduling in the process of scheduling one-on-ones with all of you. And that'll give us a chance to kind of talk through more of those logistics individually. But if you ever have questions or concerns, as we mentioned in our email out earlier this weekend, was feel free to send those in, name them with us, either individually or as a group, either now here or when they come up to you and you spark, you might be at home thinking about your plans. Feel free to send us an email anytime. Those are definitely things we want to address because you're probably not the only one that has that question. So it's kind of bystander syndrome, ask it because other people probably are wondering the same thing. So, with all that being said, we're going to kind of dive into our presentation for the day. So first, we asked you to watch about the philosophy of leading, and I'm going to turn over to Don Paul to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so don't need to go through all these same slides. So in the last email, there was a clip that we asked you to watch of a video of Joey actually talking about this with some of our colleagues. So hopefully that you watched that. We want to go through all of this in detail. If you have not watched that, because we realize we have busy lives and whatnot, I definitely would like you to go back and watch that. I think it's very important because obviously this is what you're called to do while you're at work. So really what I just wanted to jump into the discussion, not rehash that same video that many of you watched. So just two quick questions here. Of the characteristics presented, which one do you think comes most naturally to you? And which one do you think you might struggle with at World Youth Day? Okay, so were we gonna turn to the partner? Yeah. So if you want to just pair next to you, next to somebody next to you to share about that. The previous slides that we just whipped through were some of those things that Jody mentioned, like flexibility, adaptability, communication, collaboration, those types of things. So again, the questions are, what do you most resonate as a leader with? What do you think you'll be really good at during World Youth Day? What's maybe something else that you might feel a little more nervous about? Like, oh, I'm not sure if I'm the best communicator, for instance. Yeah, just turn to a partner and share for a couple minutes.
Yeah, and online friends, you can all turn to each other and chat.
We're gonna mute the room.
Yeah.
Do you want to start with the one that's most challenging for us then?
Sure. Go for it.
Yeah, I guess for me, I was thinking flexibility has always been a challenge for me, but I think especially so in something that is so like well planned and thought out that it feels like nothing should go wrong, ideally. So much pre-planning and effort is put in to World Youth Day, and especially by all the Verso staff, that I feel like especially crushing to me when something does end up going wrong. I think it'll be a challenge for me to respond like kindly to that inconvenience and to not get frustrated.
Sorry, I just came on. I'm at work right now, but that's actually my strength. Like I
Nice.
am very flexible. The last World Youth Day, I was like the physician of the group, and always something was happening. So I'd be like left behind with someone, or I'd like accompany someone somewhere else before like the bus is taking off. And I completely don't mind that, but expect that. So I actually like that. So that is my strength.
Nice.
Yeah.
My struggle is I think is like having a backup plan. Like I can make plans, but sometimes I don't. I just like trust that it's going to work out and don't make backup plans.
Yeah, that's a good one. I'm a communications director in my job, which is why this is funny, but I think that the communication piece is what I'm like, okay, like just being really intentional. I know that like there's so much to take in from Verso, and then wanting to be really, really like clear with everybody. I think that's what has been the challenge on my mind of like, okay, details, like making sure that like all of those little details are communicated. Like, I think it's exciting, but I'm like already mentally preparing of like, okay, how can we be like really just intentional and clear with everybody?
And a lot of times, to just add on to that, like even though you communicate that to the group, people don't exactly listen all the time. So you may already say something, but it may not be received from their end. So it's not your fault too, or may not be your fault.
Yeah. And then just saying it again, I'm sure, and just kind of being on repeat a little bit, but yeah.
They will constantly need reminders. Did I miss anything? I'm so sorry, but did I miss anything for the first 5 or 10 minutes?
Oh, we did a Kahoot quiz. I don't know if you caught the end of that at all.
I saw Hunter one, but that was it.
Okay, yeah, that's what we started off. It was sort of just a review from, well, yeah, like I guess the last session and then kind of the preparation for this session.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was mostly that, and then the overview of what they're covering tonight,
Oh yeah,
logistics and like step-by-steps of each day, I think. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Well, I might be in and out because I have like a few more patients to see. So
No worries.
Any other thoughts of things that you feel like people will do well or like excited about?
yeah, I'm looking forward to the idea of accompaniment of someone on a pilgrimage. I feel it'll be a very unique role to be in of just being at World Youth Day. Like you're both, like everyone who is there is both pilgrim, but then in a special way we're helping very particularly all of these other pilgrims to really try and facilitate an amazing experience for them, which I'm just really looking forward to and really hoping to grow a lot in that sort of that skill and that ministry.
That's what I was thinking as my strength as well. I've been in ministry and education for a long time, and that's why, is because I like accompanying people. So yeah, I mean, the logistics aren't what get me excited. I can do them, but what I get excited about is just helping people encounter Christ.
Yeah, same. I feel all of that.
All right, we can come back together. Yeah, any brave souls want to just share what you talked about? We're going to do one here and one online.
Oh, don't look at me as the only one.
Somebody online.
Okay, well, I was just gonna say, I mean, it was just funny because we must be married because we had like absolute opposites, so I felt like I think adaptability and flexibility is like what I do all the time, always having to change course because plan A didn't work out. And I'm okay with that, and I think I'm pretty good at like trying to make lemonade out of things, and like, you know, I used to be called Pollyanna a little bit. So that's good, but I kind of get high, I was thinking about having to text and write and like communicate to people about what's coming tomorrow and what we just did, and to like get this space to synthesize something and send it. I'm like, I'm gonna need help because that makes me really nervous. I'm good with communication in person, but I hate text. I hate emails. So I'll work on it.
Somebody online want to share?
Yeah, I think we're all very excited about the opportunity to accompany pilgrims, and just really seeing it as a great gift and opportunity to accompany those who are seeking to more deeply encounter Jesus, especially in the midst of World Youth Day, amidst so many other amazing personal encounters. Just a really special opportunity for all of us to walk with those people on their journey.
Thank you. Great. Yeah, I think it's just helpful to know, I mean, part of what this whole first section today is thinking more broadly about like, what do we expect from you as kind of like in a leadership capacity, and kind of summarize some key themes of, you know, especially hats you're going to wear, let's call it, okay, while you're at World Youth Day. You're going to be doing many things, just like, you know, as a parent, you're doing wearing different hats at all different times of the day. And, you know, it just is what's required of you. It's going to be kind of similar, right? You're going to be, sometimes you're going to be, in the front of the group, giving directions, like, you know, helping people navigate where to go and whatnot. Other times you'll be walking one-on-one with somebody who needs to talk to you, right? Everything in between. But we wanted to kind of summarize and in a quick way, help you understand, like, okay, push comes to shove at World Youth Day, here's what your role is in a nutshell. So that's the next slide here. Okay, so we came up with this fun kind of turn of phrase here: collaborate, communicate, and navigate. All right, and that's just one thing which we're going to continue to hold in front of you and to remind you about your primary role, 3 roles during World Youth Day is to collaborate, to communicate, and to navigate. And there's a lot of things, you know, within there in each of those areas. But the first one, collaborate. I mean, obviously that's pretty obvious, okay? But it's collaborating across many, you're kind of the linchpin between many different people, right? So you're going to be the linchpin with pilgrims and group leaders. You're going to be kind of the linchpin between a group leader and maybe the local guy who's giving you the tour of Fatima. You might be the in-between between us, the Verso, you know, head staff of Stephanie, Jenna, or I, who's going to be kind of helping manage and supervise you during the week. You might be, you know, communicating with us about what a group leader wants and how do I, you know, they're asking for something I don't know how to give to them, let's say, right? So you're going to be kind of the key go-between between a lot of different people and navigating a lot of different personalities, a lot of different wants and needs. And so you have to find a way to collaborate well with all of those different people, okay? And provide, you know, something we talked about last time, which is providing the logistical and spiritual support throughout the whole experience. So one of our core values is collaboration, that we value collaboration, right? So, you know, one way you might approach, one way to approach the days at World Youth Day would be, you know, you sit down with group leader and you go, okay, here's what we're doing today. We're going to do this, 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 and this, you know, no discussion, right? Like you could do that, right? As a pilgrimage director. Rather, we want the opposite approach, which is like, sit down with the group leader. Okay, here's some things we need to think about tomorrow for our schedule. Here's our you can maybe start with a recommended option of like, okay, here's what I'm thinking. You know, what do you think? Right? And have a conversation and have a collaborative conversation about that, come to agreement. And in rare instances, maybe you do need to like put your foot down about something, let's say, but in most cases, we want to come to a collaborative effort to decide about certain things. Okay, so collaboration is a huge part of who we are at Verso and what you'll be doing there. And then the other big thing we talked about last time was you might be working with 2 or even 3 different groups as part of your big group as a pilgrimage director. So you're gonna need to collaborate also between group leaders to maybe sometimes find common ground about, when to leave for a certain event or where to be sitting or, whatnot, right? So that's a perfect collaborator. Second is communicate, which we just talked about, which is, communicating the daily events and schedule, presenting event options to group leaders. And something we'll be constantly reminding you to do is like, just have constant lines of communication, especially with your group leaders. Okay, those that are going to be pilgrimage directors, constant communication between you and the group leaders about what's happening currently, but also what's next. So we need to be 2-3 steps ahead at all times, so that the group leader can hopefully be maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead, and then the pilgrims know what to expect, right? So we got to kind of be 2 to 3 steps ahead at all times, and we need to be communicating, kind of helping the group leader thinking about things, right? The Verso headquarters staff, you need to be constantly communicating with Jenna, myself, and Stephanie about like, what are you up to today? Asking us if you have free time, what help do I need? Where do I need to be? Communicating back like, hey, I finished that thing you told me. Now, what's next? Or just that constant line of communication between what you're up to and what needs to be done, that kind of thing, right? And then finally, navigating the city. So not only navigating the city, but also crisis management. So navigating that broader sense of really just helping to navigate the whole experience with your groups and your group leaders. I think this gets very practical in a lot of ways too, which especially with the communicate and the navigate, which is a primary role of World Youth Day is going to be helping group leaders understand, pilgrims understand what's happening that day or the next day or in future days, understanding what events are happening and where, because there is, it's basically like, I don't know, think of a big conference or festival. Think of like the Olympics, right? The Olympics has constant events happening at all different parts of the city, like sometimes all together, like opening ceremonies, but sometimes the same, different events happening at the same time in different venues. So some days you have a very obvious schedule where it's like, okay, everybody's doing this. Literally every pilgrim at World Youth Day is going to the closing mass, right? To be very obvious where you're going to be on Sunday morning. But on, say, Wednesday or Thursday, you have a few more options at your disposal that our job is to communicate, hey, this is what's available to you, and help navigate with your group leaders to choose, like, okay, there's these 5 events, here's what these look like and what they are, and let's come to a selection there. So it's not every day, it's not every hour, but there are going to be moments where you have some options and you're going to be talking through. And one of our primary roles is to communicate what kind of possibilities are out there. And then the second part of that was, once you decide what you're doing, helping navigate the schedule, the logistics to get there, get home, and all of that. Okay.
So in general, the groups are going to things as a group, and it's really just the group leader who's gonna make the call, as opposed to like, hey, 12 pilgrims, like you're off.
Great question. So for the most part, I would say typically, yes. So typically the groups would stay together, typically to do things together. Now it also depends if they have minors or if they have majors, like call them adults. If they have minors, they'll have very strict rules about, okay, chaperones, and you'll follow the, kind of the guidelines of the diocese of sponsoring this organization. We rely on them to provide, guidelines. We are not chaperones for the minors, okay? So it kind of depends on your group and what they want to do, but that's a great topic to talk about early on with your group leaders about how do you want to handle things, because for sure, groups that have young adults, especially young adults only, or if they're mixed young adults and minors, there are going to be young adults who are kind of like, well, I want to go over here today. And then generally our position at Verso is that's totally fine, but you need to communicate that with us so we know we're not to wait around. Right. So in general, it will happen more on the group stage. There will likely be times when, pilgrims or maybe the whole group decides like, hey, you have free time for the next 3 hours, but we're going to meet here next. Right. Question.
This just reminded me when I was in World Youth Day in Denver, I remember there were events, but there were a lot of people who were like, we want to get in the mountains. So I remember there was like people just decide to go hiking. Is that the kind of thing that, like, would that be?
That might happen.
That-
Right? Some young adults might come up to you and go, hey, we want to go to the beach today. And how do I do that, right? And I don't think, again, you don't have to like know the exact, by memory, the train lines.
But
and
just
blah,
help
blah,
them
blah.
navigate.
But have them navigate of like, okay, well, if you do that, you can move about this, this, and this. We're gonna meet up here later in the day, so you can be back here if you want to join us then.
Okay.
Like, but there is public transportation, you can navigate the city, right? Like, there's all sorts of things that you can do in Portugal. And so, yeah, they might come up with some really crazy ideas.
They have to like get
And
permission from us or permission from their group leader, or they're grown adults and they can
So-
bring on whatever they want.
again, great question. So I think you want to set some ground rules with your group leader at the very beginning about how you want to handle those situations. Most group leaders typically would be something of this, like, it's less of permission, but more of informing, like communicating. But again, for adults, for young adults that are over age 18, who are allowed to go do whatever they want. The minors is a whole different story, which again, they might still break away in packs, but typically it would be like, okay, minor, you can't go by yourself. But if you're a small group with, 2 parents, 2 chaperones and 10 kids want to do something different from the group, again, you can navigate that with the group leader. I think the main thing is just communication, of course, which is if you're gonna leave the group, let me know, so I'm not worried about where you belong. Right?
And I think it's even for minors, it's that if you get someone coming, can I go do this? It's like, go talk to your small group leader, go talk to your group leader. Because then you become responsible for that, with that child, and the group leader might be like, where's so-and-so? And you'll be like, oh, they went to the bathroom like 20 minutes ago, and they'll be like, what? And you'll be like, oh, wait, okay. So great to just like direct them back to the person who like is in charge of them. Just so that so the person in charge of them knows where they're at, rather than like a pilgrimage director. I used to just like, when you're like, can I go do this? And be like, why don't you go check in with your chaperone, and they'll let you know. And then the people who need to know are in the know about it all.
Great. So again, we'll come back to this. We'll, collaborate, communicate, navigate. We're gonna be talking about that a lot, just kind of holding that up as reminders for us.
Great, so now we're gonna dive into the World Youth Day schedule and kind of talk day by day. So you get kind of a sense of what it is. So this is the general World Youth Day schedule. I'm sorry.
I
go on the
got
screen.
it.
Thank you. Jenna.
I got it.
Oh, sweet. Okay, so this is, now some of your groups might vary. So like, this is all to say, like, this is the ideal timeline for everybody. Your groups may vary from this or deviate from this based on the day that they arrive, the day that they depart. They might have some extra add-ons in there. They might have a pre-extension. Those are things that we're going to cover with you in your one-on-ones, so that you know exactly, like, day by day what your group is doing and how you can anticipate those. But in general, our programs who are going to World Youth Day will go to Fatima on Monday the 31st, and that's after they arrive, because most people are arriving on the 30th, and then 31st, the majority of World Youth Day programs, of course, so will go as like a large group to Fatima. And then on August 2nd or 1st, excuse me, this like really kicks off the like the opening events. So in the morning they'll kind of have free time to see the city, and we'll talk about this. We'll have mass, and then throughout the week they'll have catechesis in the morning, or what they're called rise up sessions that are going to be throughout the city, which will help them get to and attend. Some of your groups may elect not to do it. Some people are like, after like day 3, or day 2, they're like, we don't need to go again. And some groups are like, we're going every day, or they might choose different days. And we'll help you you can plan that and give them different options. But the yellow events are the ones to kind of take note of, because these are the events that are papal events. So Pope Francis will be at them. The opening mass and the 4 events in yellow will all be offered in multi-language sessions, or an atmosphere. So that's really important, as we'll talk about, to bring a radio for those events, because we'll have translations for them. The rise up sessions will be in English for the group. Now I know some of your groups have like bilingual speakers or bilingual groups, predominantly in Spanish. And we will work with you guys that have Spanish speaking programs when we're there. But just to give you a heads up, like most everybody will attend English catechesis. But it may not just be all Americans speaking English, it could be, people from Africa or from Asia, so that they can hear and understand the sessions rise up. So this is the general schedule, and then most people will be, after the vigil on the 6th, they'll go and a closing mass or commissioning mass. We'll head back to the hotels, and some groups one or two groups will head off that evening, their Fort Wayne South Bend pilgrims. The rest of everybody else will kind of have time to chill in their hotels, get ready, and then at various times on the 7th, typically head out to their airports to depart, and a few groups will stay until the 8th and fly out then. So, Hunter, yeah.
So if like half of your group wants to go to one of these sessions, the other half doesn't. Do you go with the half that does go, or do you stay with the half that, like, how do you know like where to?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah. So because like our job is to help people get to these events, if someone chooses not to attend that, that's fine. It's a good conversation to say, like, okay, if you don't want to do that, let me help you find the resources to, if you do want to come, or when we are meeting up later. So let's say on Thursday morning, they don't want to go to catechesis because they need a break on Wednesday morning, but they want to meet up with, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to take the other group. That's totally fine. Like, you as the group leader, they can elect to do something else, but checking in with them and having a conversation like, okay, you're not going, so what are you planning to do? Or can I help you plan something for that morning? Can I help you navigate and give you the tools and the resources to prepare for that, so that they don't feel abandoned? And then being attentive to them, like checking in that morning, and then being able to take the other group to catechesis or rise up. But also having that ahead of plan, thinking, as we talked about, 3 or 4 steps in advance of those groups, for those groups, so that you can say like, okay, well, the arrival of the Pope is at, let's say, 8:00 p.m. and they're going to start. Why don't we all meet at X location so that we can gather, and we'll wait for you there, and then we'll all go to the papal event together, so that we can all be in the same space because we're all in the same ticketed location and so forth. And then just kind of, again, meeting up with them and then checking in throughout the day, either via text or phone call or WhatsApp, whatever is best for the group leader. So they don't all have to go together, but the big thing when you're with them, like if you have 2 groups or multiple groups, is really giving accompaniment to everybody at the level that they want and need it as well. Because some groups might be like, I don't need you at all. You're like, okay, well, we still need to check in. So it's still your, like, they may not always want it, but there's ways to engage them in that accompaniment as well to help them navigate those things. John Paul, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this last time, which is especially if you're sharing 2 groups or 3 groups, there's likely to be times they're going to split. It's that you can't go to 3 different places at once. So you just have a great conversation with the groups, and then then eventually you'll be choosing one, and that might be a hard situation to navigate at times. But generally, I mean, most of our group leaders are pretty reasonable and generous people. So I think, and many of them have done things like this before. So I think they're just happy to have that sounding board, that support system. But most of them, I think, are going to be pretty confident at getting around, right? And that if I break away for a day,
I'm just looking at Tuesday and Wednesday, and there's quite a bit of downtime. What are going to be some of the options that we're? Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely get there. So
I don't know if this was already something you guys knew, but there was a big deal about the Pope deciding to go to Fatima while he goes to World Youth Day. Is that gonna be the day that we're all there, or is that another day?
So he's actually going the morning of the 5th, I think is what the new schedule is. So it won't impact our visit.
Okay.
And actually it'll probably be better because we'll go before he's there and it won't be crazy busy.
Okay.
And there won't be any impact on the vigil because he doesn't come until later in the evening that night. So I think in Panama, he came in by,
So we'll be walking all day.
yeah, potentially all day. Hopefully not all day.
Well, is it 12 miles for real?
Just depend on where you're.
Depends on where your hotel is.
Depends on, yeah. And if you can get, and also like the other thing, we'll talk about this is whether or not you can get like jump on a metro line, and they do have good metro systems or a bus line. Like when John Paul and I were in Panama, I think we walked like a whole I don't know, like half mile to the metro station and then got on the metro, maybe it was a mile or 2, got on a metro stop and took it all the way and then probably walked 5 miles to the site. Just because like the metro wasn't that far, but as you can imagine, housing or lodging that many people overnight is quite a large field area to find a location. So that's the bulk of it. But we'll dive into some of those questions we've got about the open schedule.
Well, sorry, I didn't know they were going great.
No, you're fine. That's a great question. It dovetails very nicely. So on Monday, when everybody arrives, well, excuse me, that'll be like the morning, what technically World Youth Day says is most programs will be arriving that day. Our groups will actually have arrived the previous day. We will have your program kits already. Jen and I are gonna go early and we can pick up their program kits. There's like one place the World Youth Day Committee will be giving out like the backpacks and the swag and they'll be giving programs. We'll pick those up for the group and then the goal is to have them delivered to the hotel so that you guys don't have to make your way to the university to pick them up. So that they're just there and you can distribute them to your programs when they arrive. So that's gonna be when they first get there. And then we're gonna head up to Fatima on this day. And the big thing will be, we will give, each group will have a bus when they're traveling to Fatima. And so you're gonna remember who your guide is and what bus you're on, because that'll be really key to remember like where you're at. Your guide will be with you. On one bus, there'll be one guide to one bus. It'll be really helpful. So if you have like a group that's spread across multiple buses, like Fort Wayne, South Bend or Indianapolis, it's not going to be just like one guide for 180 people. It'll be one guide per bus. So it'll make it a lot easier because they'll be able to divide themselves on kind of smaller groups and so forth. But it'll be really key for you, pilgrimage directors and headquarters staff, to remember who your guides are, so you can check in with them if you have multiple, or if you're on one bus with two groups, to remember which bus you're on and which guide you have. And then the guide is really going to be able to explain the different sites and help give information about Fatima. There'll be time for mass, and then really like the big thing is here on this day is to be really clear and set good expectations and then repeat. So that'll be like setting times of like, if we're like, okay, we're all meeting for mass, we'll tell you what time mass is and where you're gonna meet. And those are things you'll then want to communicate to your program, like, okay, we're gonna meet at this lamppost right here at 4 o'clock. And then repeat that again, put it in the WhatsApp chat. It's just that constant communication about it, because someone will hear it one time, but they won't hear it the next time, and so forth. And then I think an important part of like accompanying programs spiritually is reminding the group leaders as well as the programs when you're preparing for Worldview for Fatima, or when you're on the bus, to invite them to think as they're traveling there, what intentions are they taking with them? And then explaining the devotions of the shrine. So at the shrine, you can light candles, and we'll give you this list, so don't really have to memorize it now. You can light candles, you can see the various chapels and sit at the site of the apparition, as well as there's, you know, if you're done with the devotions, you can go and there's tons of little shops that you can buy relics and religious items at too. So that's a good thing to encourage people to do if their group leaders allow them, and so forth. But really, like, the day at the shrine is going to be pretty open for people to explore. The group leader may have pretty defined guidelines for you as a group leader, and that might talk about like, okay, we want people to do the rosary at this time, and then we're going to do these, or you might offer multiple options so people can engage with different things kind of at their comfort level, because everyone's going to be kind of on a different spiritual path. So giving them that opportunity to engage in those spiritual. Yeah, Hunter.
Is there a verso mass for like all of our programs?
Right now, it sounds like we'll be joining the public masses that day. We're hoping to at least confirm some kind of private mass, but it's looking like it'll be a public mass that the priest and the archbishop will be able to con-celebrate at. So if that changes, we'll give you guys abreast of that. So.
Question, what is the ratio of group leader to programs? Or is that different?
It's different for every group. Again, to the point of minors versus young adults. So young adults, they might have like Marianal and Bon Shakur have, I think they have 2 group leaders for all their young adults, and they have like 18 young adults, I think. Versus like Fort Wayne, South Bend, it's a mix of young adults and youth. So they have a ratio of chaperones to youth that they have to uphold as a diocesan role. So it might be one adult to every 5 youth or something like that, so.
Ratios good size.
Yeah, it's not huge.
It's not like one
so-
per 50.
No, yeah, for the youth, that's much more typical, and then I think for young adults, it is gonna be, they might have like small group leaders, like even with the scouts in Houston, they might have like people that they've named as like facilitators of small groups, but again, they'll be all young adults, so it'll really be like the main group leader and then maybe some subgroup leaders along the way as well.
Yeah, and I would just remember that if you are with one of those bigger groups that's gonna have like a lot of cooks in the kitchen as far as chaperones and subgroup leaders and all of that. Remember, like, early in the week, like, talk with the main group leader and establish, and remember, like, you are there to support the main group leader and any other people they want to pull into that, but it's not your responsibility to like beckon to the call of 20 chaperones that might be there who like might have questions, like you like don't feel like you have to be overwhelmed by that. Or when it comes to decision making, like you have the ability to say, like, this is what your like group leader, the main person, has decided that our group is going to do, and like you have the ability to tell chaperones that and like work with the group leader to decide that. So this is especially relevant if you are in a larger group.
So then they'll have a box lunch from there at Fatima as well, so that'll be really, we'll help distribute those and get them those, they can enjoy lunch from there at Fatima, and then they'll come home that night. Day 2 on Tuesday, they're gonna be, the morning, to your point, Iona, about like the morning is free because the opening mass isn't until 6 p.m. that evening. And so in the morning, it can be exploring Lisbon on their own, so if they haven't had a chance to go see the cathedral or St. Anthony of Lisbon church or see the Belém Tower, they'll have that opportunity, as well as throughout the week. There are 2 events that are going to be, or 2 festivals that will be happening, which is the City of Joy, and that is in Belém, which is in the southwestern part, just down a little bit away from the walking area or from the main kind of downtown area. And there at the City of Joy, they'll have confessions that will be open and offered in languages for so English and Spanish and so forth, as well as vocations fair. And those will be open and you'll have a schedule of when those are available. And then the youth festival is something that's a little different. It's like, think of like speakers, artists, singers, musicians, and so forth from all over the world that are going to be offering their talents and gifts to people to encounter at various stages around the city. So this is a really great opportunity in the morning and early afternoon to look at that schedule with your group leader and see, like, are we going to go explore? Are we going to do like a walking exploration of Lisbon, or do you want to like offer the group to go down to Belém this morning, or to a youth, or is there a particular maybe speaker or group you want to see as part of the youth festival, and kind of taking that opportunity to plan ahead for those events, either that day or throughout the week as well, because they will be running throughout the duration of it. And then in the evening, like I said, the opening mass is at 6. However, it is good to know that, as you can imagine, when there are hundreds of thousands of people embarking into one location, it's going to be pretty central and busy as is in Lisbon, that you're going to want to make sure that you give enough time to get there. So getting there a couple hours early is also really important too. And then think fast, find the not so much food that day, but make sure you've eaten. And then look for water and shade and the toilet and so forth. So
like we'll be there at 4 p.m. Like when you say hours, is it like either at 3 or?
it could be early as, like, I think when we were in Panama, we got there about 2 in the afternoon and just hung out, and that's time you can like get to know your pilgrims, you can listen, they'll have music playing, you can pray, you can chat. It really is, some of it is like a hurry up and wait situation at World Youth Day a little bit. So even thinking ahead of that, to maybe be like, oh, like I've got cards in my backpack or whatever, and engaging in those activities at the right times and so forth. But it is sometimes a little bit of like, you're just gonna get there and then sit for long periods of time.
Yeah, and you kind of need to do that because there's so many people. So if you show up at 5:30, like.
You'll miss it.
Yeah, you might be any room in your schedule, you might get held up by if there's security. Like in Panama, there were security lines in certain entrances, and then not security lines or entrances. So it's like, you just never know what to expect. And then a lot of people will just line the streets just so they can hopefully see the Pope drive by. right? So that happens.
Wednesday morning is Rise Up, and these are gonna be usually starting, I think they usually start around like 8 or 9 in the morning. So these are gonna be earlier mornings, especially depending on the location. We haven't heard officially where the locations are, and as of a few months ago, we're not assigning locations to people. So it's gonna be a little bit of like a look on a map. We'll know more before we get there. And then you hopefully will have a day to figure out where you want to take your group. Or might suggest to your group leader, like, hey, we're at this hotel, there's a catechesis site, and we can get there easily by taking bus 1, 2, 3, you know. But they are gonna be moving, the plan is to move the pilgrims outside of the city center during the morning for catechesis or for Rise Up, so that they are able to allow the people who live and work in Lisbon to still be able to get to their jobs and reduce the amount of traffic kind of descending upon the city at the same time. So pulling the kind of reverse commuting, if you will. Yes.
I don't know if you saw this, but we were looking at going to the airport, and there was something news about how they're doing something with the traffic in the center of the city. It's not allowing certain buses and things like that during this time. I was like, oh, how interesting. Like that it was some construction or.
Oh, I'll have to look into that.
I don't know. I saw that and I was like, hey, that's.
Yeah, I can see the article you're talking about, but I mean, certainly there will be revised transportation. So there will be certain, like the Edward VII Park, for instance, where a lot of these events are gonna be held. It's literally like smack dab in the middle, and there's like 2 or 3 metro stops like right there, which they're gonna shut down because they can't have them open because you're within the secure area. So there will be adjustments to the subway, there'll be adjustments to the buses. And so I think, you know, literally, you know, we tell all the pilgrims, like, just be ready to walk there, because likely earlier in the week, public transportation will be available, much more so, but as the week goes, it kind of crescendos in terms of just sheer amount of people there, more events happening, more excitement, and the Pope comes, you know, so it's like early in the week, it's a little easy to get around the city, not as bad, you can get on somebody whatnot, and as it gets longer, and you keep going, it's just harder to get on buses, harder than trains, things are changing. And so sometimes it's just like the fastest way to get somewhere, so.
Yeah, and then on Wednesday is the beginning of Rise Up, so those are a little different. They're prepping, so programs in advance, they're gonna be more synodal in the way of like communicating. So programs have been asked like submit questions in advance. I'm sure Tony can talk a little bit more about Rise Up if we've got some time. But I think this is another great day because you have the afternoon free. There isn't a papal or all World Youth Day event that some of your programs might be going on a day trip in the afternoon, and we'll let you know that. That would be like Sintra or Santarem or things like that. Otherwise, it's going to be time to go see the City of Joy, the festivals, exploring Lisbon, and so forth. And every morning, just so you know, like a Rise Up will include mass, so it is an opportunity to be a part. And as you can see in the picture here, it's people that speak the same language with dialogue and communication between the pilgrims and the leaders of the church, the hierarchy of the church, talking about the things that are kind of pressing on our mind, Laudato Si, and Tony, what are the other ones? Laudato Si.
Is one of them like social? See what the first one is. Laudato Si, the second. Social. I don't remember. But they're all 3 different themes based on like the themes of Pope Francis's, maybe mercy.
Okay, yeah, so like so those will be the things they'll be talking about, and then they'll also have mass and confession during offered at those times as well. So there'll be a lot of opportunity for engagement, but you'll also be attending sacraments daily as well. That's really important. Yeah, any questions about that? Okay, so Thursday is when we start really getting into the papal events. So in the morning, again, Rise Up encounters with mass. And then in the afternoon is going to be evening is going to be the welcome ceremony with Pope Francis, and this is going to be at Edward VII Park. I think the most interesting thing about Thursday is you will have been to Edward VII Park on Tuesday, so you'll kind of get a lay of the land of where you're going. But because of the Pope is coming, it is the most interesting thing. We'll see what it's like here, but in Panama, people would it was like they were flocks of seagulls. They would be like, is he coming down this roadway? And they would run to one side, and then they'd run to the other side. So it is interesting. And people, and what we want to invite you to consider is, again, arriving early so you can get a space. Also, you want to be, so you want to be like near a fence line or a roadway, but also being like aware that like you might pick a spot and it may not be where the boat comes, you know, and then just being adaptable and flexible in that way. And then just being also like knowing that like this is when crowds are going to get pushy, they're going to get a little bit more aggressive. So coaching your group leaders and your programs on how to be comfortable, calm, and but also protective of their own safety as well. Like, don't go running with the crowd if you don't feel like you need to go running, because that's how you twist an ankle or fall or hurt yourself. So like being reasonable about saying that everyone will see it, I think, at one point. So yeah, I think the most interesting thing this happened on Thursday for us was I was with a group in Panama and we were like, we want to get there early. They wanted to get there really early. So we were like, we're gonna go to the gate, we're gonna wait. We got to the gate and it was like being crushed by the crowd. And at some point you do have to decide like, what is better for my group? Do I stay or do we go? And we went because we were like, it's too hot. And there are some very funny memories, but there's also some like, if we kind of left, there probably could have been some very dangerous health things. So like, this is where it's like, people get really excited to be near the Pope and to think of these things. So being aware of that is safety and crisis management is important. Day 5, again, typical morning with Rise Up, and then the Way of the Cross in the afternoon and evening with Pope Francis, again at Edward VII Park. And again, as I mentioned, like really key at all of these papal events and any World Youth Day gathering to have the headphones or radio so you can hear the translation. Especially at the Stations of the Cross, they typically do them in like each station is a different language. So you'll hear them kind of like transition through them all. And it's really cool to both hear that, but then also be able to experience it as well. This is a time that I think it's easy for people because they may not be like right in front of the station to or they might be looking at the event happening over a screen, like a projected screen. That's very typical since sometimes there's a great distance between the stage and where we're sitting. That it can be easy to feel disconnected from the experience spiritually. So to invite them to remember, like if they get chatty or talking during the event, to remember to like enter into it contemplatively and prayerfully, because others around them, you know, as much as it might be difficult, it is like it's a different type of invitation prayer experience for them.
Stephanie,
Yes.
for the radio and headphones.
Yeah.
Where will those come from? Like we do providing those programs or like.
So pilgrims, that's part of their packing kit for pilgrims. So we actually asked them, like we prep them to like bring an AM, FM radio with a dial and headphones so you can listen in. Because it's so hard when it's best to have like a little radio like headsets so that you can actually hear or turn it up so that your neighbor can hear and so forth. So yeah.
So we should get them. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
There was a link embedded that sent you right to Amazon.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. And that's probably one that we've tested or used or found that's a good one. So great place to buy it. And then lastly, day 6 is the really like kind of the pinnacle event of the week. It's Saturday with beginning the visual experience. So in the morning, we'll be leaving in the morning. Our really recommendation is they get up and get going pretty early in the day. This might mean for some of your groups, we have not planned mass at these on Saturday. And I know that this is, some groups are going to be okay with that. Some groups might push back on that. Some groups we might arrange mass for them. It's going to vary group by group. But we're typically going to invite them to head out pretty early in the day, because again, like any of the papal events, it is going to be something where it's going to be a hurry up and sit there, but it's going to be for a good reason, because within the ticketed events that you're going to get a ticket for, each pilgrim will have a ticket and it'll have an assigned section for them, both for any of the World Youth Day events that they're joining for. And for the vigil, especially if you wait too long to get there, think about like you're the last one going to you're going to a sleepover with your friends and family. I know we've all done this, and you're the last one there to lay out your sleeping bag. How many of you ever have gotten shoved against like the wall or the TV's right there and you can't fall asleep? That's what it can be like if you wait too long to get the vigil. You'll either be split up as a group or you'll be shoved in a very small, tight space. So that's why we invite you to get there early and stake your claim on some really valuable real estate, if you will, within each section, so that you know that you're together, but that you also like have a space for you. On the way there, you'll also be picking up, and typically it's that way, is you pick up like food packs along the way, they'll give you, that are provided by World Youth Day. Really important to remember that this is the food for typically lunch, dinner, and breakfast for the day. So just to ration or to bring snacks along the way is also really helpful, but don't eat it all at once, you'll be hungry the next morning, and I think helping programs to remember that. And then getting to the vigil is just gonna vary based on where your location is for your hotel. And then what public transportation is available and how much walking and how many like good steps you get in that day. But I would bank on, as John Paul said, like your feet are your best transportation, so you know they're always gonna work. And you won't get delayed, so that I would bank on walking, and then if you find another route, then you'll be pleasantly surprised by the Holy Spirit, so. Great, and then morning of Sunday, you'll do it'll be the missioning mass, and we'll find out where the next World Youth Day is and when it will be. And everyone is welcome from the host country to attend this event. So don't be surprised if in the morning, when you're woken up very early by a woman saying good morning like they did. But then also that it might get a little bit more crowded for mass, because everyone from the host country is welcome to join for that. So again, being especially attentive to like personal space. And then also being aware that just like any Notre Dame football game we've all been to, it takes a little while to leave the stadium because there's just a mass exodus that happens. So for the World Youth Day events, especially the farewell mass or the commission mass, you might be in the space for a little longer, unless we recommend to actually leave a little bit before the end of kind of all of the singing and all of the joyful things that happen, just so that you can get out and you're not stuck for hours waiting to kind of funnel out through the one or two open spaces, or get out before the crowd and get a bus home. So in Panama, we did that. We walked down the main drag on the highway, found some buses, and I think we were back to the hotels by like 9, whereas other groups weren't back until mid-afternoon or early evening. So it really just depends on when you leave and what the transportation is like coming home. So. Yeah.
All right, so that was sort of an overview of the schedule. And this next section is going to sort of take a look at like a day in general and what sorts of things we want you to be thinking about as you move through this role. So we're going to talk in both like broad strokes and very specific here. But just want to like prepare you and fill you in that you can expect as a program director, your days are going to be long. They are going to be exhausting. They are going to be very fast paced, but simultaneously they're going to be rewarding and they're going to be filled with joy. And they're also, I think, most importantly, going to be full of opportunities to both encounter and be the face of Christ. And so that's something that we really don't want you to lose sight of, because I think we have talked about a lot of logistics and we're going to continue to talk about a lot of just logistics, but we do all that in order to facilitate that encounter. And so we want you in your roles to remember that amidst all of that, why you are there, and to be able to notice those small moments of grace that can then give you like the peace and the inner courage and the strength to make decisions and to be exhausted and to power through and to be the best you can be for your group leaders and for your pilgrims. So just overall, once again, collaborate, communicate, navigate. These are like throughout the whole week. We will say these things to you a lot of different times, so remember them. Other general rule is early means on time. And so it says here, always arrive at least 5 to 15 minutes ahead of schedule. We are not talking about like 5 to 15 minutes before massive post starts. We are talking about like 5 to 15 minutes before, depending on like the time of day and what it is. But like, if your group's like, all right, we're going to meet in the lobby at 8:15 a.m. and leave, like you better be down there by 8, because people are going to be early and you should be the first one there. Or we're going to gather at like this street pole, or we're going to meet at like right outside this restaurant. Like you want to make sure that you're there ahead of the group so that you can be there to answer questions as people get there early and start making sure you have everyone and everyone is ready to then move on to the next thing. And then finally, and this is a little bit of what we're going to get into, but your job is to always be thinking one step ahead. And so one step ahead of the group leader, and hopefully the group leader is thinking one step ahead of the group, but you want to be able to anticipate situations before they arise so that you can do what is necessary so that the group leader is prepared, so that then the group leader can help you prepare the pilgrims, so that no one is surprised about what should be happening. So these are just like general overarching things. Sorry, people on the screen, I'm moving you to the side. So this next section, we're gonna break it down sort of by, well, let me drag, or we'll just go like that. Like evening / afternoon, then morning, and then during the day. So these checklists are general checklists that we're gonna be asking you to do and sort of go through every day, and they're gonna be in your playbook and whatnot. There's also going to be more specific checklists for each day. So there's going to be a checklist for the night before you go to Fatima of making sure Fatima specific day, I've got to make sure that you do these things and also XYZ, or a vigil specific checklist and a opening mass specific one. But just sort of generally, your next day begins at like 2 or 3 p.m. the day before, because you should be thinking about, okay, this is how we're wrapping up this day, but what's tomorrow look like? What are the things that are happening? What do I need to be aware of? What do I need to make the group leader aware of? And so at some point in the late afternoon, evening, dinner time, you should find a time to check in with the group leader and hash out the plan for the next day. So you want to talk about, number one, you could start by saying like, okay, like how did today go? Like, what can we learn from what happened today? Were there things that were really good, things that we want to do differently tomorrow, etc. And then go through, okay, this is what tomorrow looks like. What time do we want to meet to do this? What time is this going to happen? How do we want to get from here to here? And get all of that set up. And then after you decide that with your group leader, we want you to, they will help communicate that to their pilgrims, but we also are going to ask you to then help communicate any announcements, tomorrow's schedule, and what pilgrims should bring via the group's WhatsApp. And we will have drafts of that already templated out for you, so you don't have to like invent the wheel. You might just be adjusting sort of like specific things, or like inserting your group name, or like if you want to add a funny comment about like a thing that happened for your group today, and like something that would make your pilgrim smile. I don't know, like you could personalize it, but the structure will be there. But that, and send that message out, and so that pilgrims can know and get that, so as they're like going back to their rooms, getting ready for bed, they have that schedule, they know what time they need to be up tomorrow, they know what they need to bring, and are all ready to go. That night, kind of when you get into your room, we're going to ask you to look at that next day's individual checklist and prepare the stuff that you need for that day. And part of that might be if you're going to say Fatima, or if you're going on a day trip, and one of those things that you might need to prepare would be tip money. Some groups have elected to prepay for their tips in advance. So they're paying Verso for all the tips throughout the entire pilgrimage, and then we would then distribute them on their behalf to like a local guide or whatnot. And we'll let you know if that applies to you, but that's something to think of. And then finally, the last thing we definitely want you to do every night is to check in with your assigned head staff person. And that can be just really, it does not, we're not saying like sit down for a formal hour-long meeting, not what this is going to look like, but just that we do want to touch base with you and just hear about how your day was and make sure you're ready to go for tomorrow. And that's really just an opportunity for you to ask questions and for us to support you. We're also going to have, like, I think, opportunities in the evening for us to, whether it's like together or virtually, like gather for like you to all like check in with each other and pray together and different things like that. And we're going to go have much more information about exactly what that will look like, but checking in with us is going to be very important. Your headquarters, this looks a little different, but you generally, if you're headquarters staff, you will have been given an assignment for the day. And so we want you at night to communicate in with your head staff person about what happened and how that's going and any updates there. Then also checking in regarding tomorrow's assignment. And then the last one is just to be available. I think for headquarters staff in particular, that is going to be so key. Whether that's like standing in the lobby as groups get back and helping people like get up to their rooms, or if you know you're staying in a hotel and there's like 2 or 3 different other Verso staff that are there, like check in with them, like, hey, can I do anything? Is there anything you need from me? And just be available and present to help and assist in any way you can. So in the morning, pilgrimage directors, you're going to want to check in with that group leader again, just to make sure that you're verifying, and, all right, this is what we got, we're good. You know, everyone knows what's happening. If there's been any adjustments, you want to like sort that out then. And then sort of as directed by the group leader, provide programs with updates and details via WhatsApp, or if like you're in the lobby and it was like, all right, we're gonna meet outside by this thing, and now it's actually, oh, we're gonna meet like here instead, like being in the lobby to help direct traffic. And whatnot is gonna be really important. Also just a brief check-in with head staff, and like that check-in might be just like a text message, or it might be a WhatsApp message, or maybe because of something weird that changed, it's like a 3-minute phone call, or maybe something big changed and it's like a 15 to 30-minute phone call, or whatever it might be.
Come help me.
Or yeah, like, please come, I need you immediately, which is totally fair. And then also just once again, being available and being that presence, like as programs are coming down to breakfast, being around, being there to answer questions, to help direct people, to help guide people. And then same thing for headquarters staff, just continue to check in with head staff, confirm what your assignment is for that day. And then communicate with the other PDs in the hotel and assist to help get groups on their way. So especially like if you're in a hotel, like there's going to be a lot of Verso groups there, but there's also probably going to be pilgrims from other groups, and just being there to help make sure that our people know where they're supposed to go and they're headed to the right space is going to be really key and really important. So then you're going to be off for the day, and so you're going to be doing all sorts of different wonderful things, just as Stephanie described. So whether you are a pilgrimage director or HQ, you're going to be attending World Youth Day events with your group or groups. And then back to all that collaborate, communicate, navigate stuff. So making any necessary changes or adjustments to the schedule, communicating with the group leaders, communicating with pilgrims, helping shepherd people. And then just sort of being available to answer questions, provide resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You are there to help group leaders shepherd their pilgrims physically and spiritually, and whatever that looks like for their group and however you can be there to support them. That is why they're there. And then ultimately, you are the people behind the scenes that do the things that make the magic happen. So I think that's an important thing to remember, is that being a staff member at World Youth Day isn't always a glamorous job. It's not always going to be pretty. It's not going to always feel like, wow, like this is such a powerful, cool thing, and every second that I'm here. But because of the work you do, you put the pieces into place to allow others to enter fully into that experience, and to encounter Jesus, and to encounter the church, and to encounter each other in a new and beautiful way. Like I said, those daily checklists are going to be in the playbook, and so there will be like specific things for each day for you to reference and for you to go back to. And we'll make those incredibly available to you in the playbook, and then I'm sure we'll also send them out. And yes.
And we'll talk about them too in your one-on-ones.
Yes.
If you have questions about like, what does this mean, or things like that, you'll have this one for those, so you'll have the chance to take a look at all those resources before you meet with us and then answer any questions.
Yes. And then finally, so there are some things that we are going to be asking you to always carry with you. So this list also will be found in other locations, and we can remind this of you. But first of all, you're going to have information about your pilgrims that is going to be important that you have on your person. So that's going to be things like dietary restrictions or medical conditions, and a roster so you know who all of your people are. Once again, all of these reports will be provided to you, and we just ask that you have them on you in case of an emergency, or in case you're just counting like, okay, like I have 20 people in my group, but 19 of them are here. Like here's, if day one, I don't know any of your names, and then you have a list of names that you can work with. You are all going to get official Verso staff name tags, very exciting. So we ask that you have that and you wear that and you use that just to identify yourself as a Verso staff person, and especially in places where there might be lots of Verso pilgrims, and that way there's people who maybe aren't in the groups that you're assigned also see that and know, okay, they're with Verso, I can go to them, they're my people, and they're like, that can be a good identifying factor. Some of these others might be fairly obvious, but water bottle, hat, and sunscreen can be super key. It's going to be hot. You might want to bring some snacks just in case. You never know what might occur. This is, I think, especially key for the vigil, making sure that you have some extra snacks in addition to that vigil kit. Each of you is going to be given a mini first aid kit that we would like you to have on you at all times, in addition to map of the city / public transportation. You are all going to have cell phones. We talked about that in the last meeting, that you're gonna have international cell phone coverage. But just in case, we want you to have that paper physical map, in case for whatever reason that fails. Having your cell phone and a charger on you, and then Pilgrim details, and then that radio to translate World Youth Day events. So there, we can go into, not immediately, but right now, and I think there, it is probably true that many of you also have just like general packing questions, particularly if you haven't been to World Youth Day. And so we have a packing list that we will provide to you and we can talk about. But hopefully that's helpful in sort of thinking about like, all right, like what is my job and what am I actually expected to be doing? And what will this sort of look like as I move through these various scenarios and days and events?
It dovetails very well into our next wonderful activity is, yes, Ted.
Before we get to the sixth question.
Yeah.
So one question I have is there some sort of like uniform or dress code for us, and are pilgrims going to be identifiable by lanyard or hat or shirt? Or...
Great question. Yeah, so the goal is to give 1,100 name tags out. So there'll be verso name tags for pilgrims. And I don't know about you, but it's hard to learn names when people don't wear a name tag. It's also a really great identifier. They were helpful in Panama because if you see the blue lanyard, you're like, oh, I know who that is, and things like that. And then I know that John Paul has been working with our Brooke in particular about some materials for you guys as our wonderful staff people. So maybe collaborate on
Yeah,
that.
we would likely have some kind of verso shirt or two that you'll get. You won't need to wear it every day, but we likely will have you for sure, like the first, day, like groups are arriving to know, like, oh, okay, like let's bring verso shirt, and that must be official. So yeah, you'll be getting kind of like a verso swag bag of sorts from us.
We get that before we get to Portugal or like in.
Good question. You should do it. So.
TBD on that one.
Yeah.
Great question, Ted.
And water bottle, like, how big? Because I mean, if you're gonna be out for a long time, I mean, I know on the video you said camelback, but if you got a backpack with all the, with a binder and all this other stuff, and you also water, like, how much are we carrying? My gym instructor wanted to know.
Running the license will be away from
So the binder will be, you could have the option to carry paper copies or digital. So you'll have access.
But not like a tube.
Well, there will be, some people will opt to take the binder, if you're a paper person for sure, you have that option. I, for one, like the digital side, and I'd rather not carry a binder the whole time, and I have it access to my phone. And then, yeah, I think, as far as the water bottle goes, I personally like, you might have a big one like that Jenna has, that's light, but big, and then there'll be like lots of places around the city that fill out for sure. But, yeah.
Any other questions?
I think a good, lightweight backpack is like key for sure. So,
Yeah, so you'll want to have like a day pack, because obviously you can carry around like a mini kit or like a mini first aid kit or things like that, or snacks, water bottles and things like that. A drawstring bag might be adequate for you, or you might want like a collapsible small backpack like that from Manflight. For the visual, you'll want something a little bit more sturdy, because those things get real tiresome if they're heavy quickly. So you'll want to like a good sturdy, comfortable backpack for carrying your stuff for the visual. We can talk about that if you're packing. So, yeah.
I don't know if this is in the packing list, but like, yeah, like it's gonna be hot. As a leader, like, I'm just thinking ahead. I know Fathom, are you supposed to wear like more like conservative clothes, like longer stuff, but like just the other days, like nice shorts, pants, like what are we thinking as like a leader?
Yeah, I feel like thinking about like professional modesty, like to mimic that. Obviously you don't want to be hot. So I think like great options are like travel pants or travel capris or travel shorts that are, you might at any given time walk into a church. So just thinking about the spaces. But I mean, like, if you're like, okay, like I might go into church, maybe we're telling our pilgrims, like, yeah, wear a tank top if you want, but like maybe bring a jacket or like a shawl or something to wear something light. Again, like you're gonna see everybody in every kind of piece of clothing. But I think like thinking about representing Verso well and modeling a style of modesty that's well for our programs. I don't think any of you are gonna wear like short shorts or anything like that. Or even like Hunter's got on zip off pants right now. So like the classic travel shorts that are like, like those are great options for if you're like, oh, I want to wear like the shorter shorts during the day. But when I'm hot, but I want to put something like Bermuda shorts for women on for like a church or whatever, I think that's great. I don't think skirts are necessary. I don't think, long sleeves are necessary, but again, it's people's own discretion of modesty and what they feel is sacred for the place that you're gonna be going. But on those days, you're like out in the sun and things like that. I think also like short sleeves are just, good if they're breathable materials as well. So they kind of wick away and things like that. There's a lot of sweat that's involved when you're outside sitting for the hurry up and wait in the sun type of things. And protective gear, you burn easily, I think preparing in that way. There is going to be a webinar that we're hosting for pilgrims, and we'd encourage that you attend this, and it'll be on part of your homework to watch either a live or recorded version of this. And Joni and Jenna are going to be all about what to pack and how to pack for these various events and to do so well. So we want you to watch that. Just as like an idea of like how to pack for yourselves too, and so forth. So great questions though.
And Fatima does not have, like, we're used to like Rome, maybe where people get kicked out of St. Peter's because they have exposed shoulders. But Fatima does not have that same. So I'm not saying we should like run into our, our swimsuits. But we've had several pilgrims ask if they should bring a shawl because they're used to going to St. Peter's and you were not allowed into St. Peter's without a shawl. But that's not, seems to be the case at that.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb is knees and shoulders covered. So, I mean, what I'm wearing right now is what I'll probably be wearing every day, which is shorts and a t-shirt or a polo or a button down. I think women, you two will be able to advise what you normally wear on that day. We'll cover that in the packing webinar. But yeah, I think shorts and t-shirts are totally fine for the main events because you're gonna be outside at 90-degree weather all day long. And as the week gets on, you're actually probably not even going to any churches. Like the Rise Up sessions are likely going to be in a church, but probably in a gymnasium or a school or some kind of public thing. So there's really no, like once Tuesday hits, there's probably very little church going to call it. So yeah, dress for the weather.
Yeah.
And I think
Oh, go ahead.
casual is the name of the game. Like you don't need to dress up for any of these events, in case that is something you were wondering.
And I think like, to be honest, like, because catechesis, like the Rise Up that I went to in Panama was outside. So we were like, Eric, who's on the call might remember this. It was like by the beginning of catechesis, we were like, what can we cover ourselves with? Because we were just baking in the sun. So it is good in some ways to bring like those layers so that like if you are getting sunburned, you can cover yourself with something, not because you want to like be like, I want to wear a long sleeve shirt because it's cold outside. It's like, I'm getting really sunburned today and I need a little extra coverage. So there's those kind of materials. And we'll have a whole packing list that'll have great recommendations and links for them. So it'll be great. So we've talked about a lot of different scenarios. By the way, does anybody on the Zoom like remote, do you guys have any questions? Can't see anybody, so I hope, nope. We'll take the unmuting as there's no questions. Great, okay. Well, now we're gonna move into some scenarios. So you guys are probably like, okay, but like, this is great, but it's all super theoretical. Like, what do I do when rubber hits the road and my group leader needs a Snickers bar and I need a water bottle to calm down? Like, how do I handle these situations that are gonna be real life for everybody? So what we've done is we're actually gonna put together some, I'm gonna hand these out so you can take one and pass it around. Just take a pen. Pass it around. And actually, so online people, if you can just grab a piece of paper or make your own mental notes about what works well and what doesn't work well. We're actually gonna do a couple scenarios. So John, Paul, Jenna, and I are going to be your improv people for tonight to give you some examples of what is a good reaction to how to handle a situation as a pilgrimage director with group leaders and what is not such a great reaction. So while we're going to give you two scenarios or the same scenario, and we're going to do it 2 different times. During that time, we would love for you to write down what you think went well about it. And what would you have done differently during our kind of interaction and our testing out of this? So let me give you the
You come
scenario.
this way, and they can see you.
Okay, so it's evening check-in. At evening check-in with your two group leaders, group leader number one, Jenna. Adamantly disagrees with you, me, the pilgrimage director, about the plan for the walking pilgrimage to the vigil and wants to depart mid-afternoon. In contrast, group leader number two, John Paul, wants to leave early, as I have advised, but is a non-confrontational person. So he isn't being very vocal about their wishes, which I have observed throughout the week of this interaction. So we're gonna tell you, we're gonna do it 2 different times, and you're gonna write down what you think we do well and what you would do differently, based on what we have just taught you all about group interaction. So, let's see, we can step in here. You won't see it yet.
We go over here. Yeah, that's better.
This is like the most awkward thing to do when you're looking at this. Okay, so, okay. Hey guys, it's so great to have been with you this whole week. We're super excited for the vigil. It is gonna be starting out tomorrow morning, so we're gonna, based on kind of our recommendations and the way that the vigil works, because we want to get there early and claim our spots so we don't get trampled on. We're gonna go ahead and head out at 8:30 tomorrow morning, right after breakfast, and get our day going real quick.
Yeah, it's Stephanie. So my group, they're all exhausted and they really need their sleep. So I don't think that's gonna work. I really like, these kids are white. Like they have never never done something like this before. They need sleep. There's no way they will be in the lobby at 8:30. I really do think it is in our best interest for them to sleep in tomorrow and then for us to head up to the vigil mid-afternoon. I mean, the Pope doesn't even get there until like 8 p.m. Like we have plenty of time.
Okay, thanks, Jenna, so much for letting me know that. John Paul, you want to leave with me at 8:30, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. You're in? Okay, so I've got one group. So Jenna, I think that we're just gonna leave you to figure it out on your own, I think. Like, I can tell you where to go, but like, I'm gonna take John Paul's group if you don't want to do what we want to do.
I thought the whole point of having you with us was so that you could be there for us all the time. Now you're abandoning us to go to the vigil. Like, I'm not just doing this to be difficult. Like, my kids are tired.
I totally get that your kids are tired, but couldn't they just go to bed earlier tonight so they can come with us? Because John Paul and I are on the same page. Like, I can't be with you all the time, but I need to take some group with me when we need to go. So can't we just go? Like, can you figure it out?
Stephanie, these kids are 17 in a foreign country without their parents. There's no way they are going to bed early.
Sounds like you have a rough time controlling your kids. So I think again, like, why don't I tell you where you need to go and then you can figure out how to get there. John Paul and I will leave and we'll make that happen, right? All right, so good luck,
Whatever.
Jenna.
Guess I'll see you for this.
Okay, so what do you think went well? What would you have done?
Wait, should we do the other one?
Should we do the other one?
Let's do the other one. and then we'll
Okay,
talk.
we'll do the other one and then we'll hear. So people on the off screen. Okay.
Take 2.
Jenna and John Paul, so excited for the vigil. We're gonna head out kind of early so we can claim our spot, you know, as we talked about, if you don't get there early, as we've seen at Edward VII Park, you don't get there early, you don't get a seat. So let's go ahead and head out after breakfast. I know it might be a little early, but let's go ahead and head out at 8:30. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that sounds great.
That sounds okay?
I don't know, man. My kids are really, really tired. Like there's no way that we're gonna be in the lobby at 8:30. I think it's gonna be really important for them to get their sleep. And then as soon as like they have a chill morning, they'll be all rested up and good to go. And I think we'll probably just plan on heading out in the afternoon. Like the Pope doesn't even get there until like 8 p.m. Like there's no need for us to be there that early.
Okay, well, I totally hear what you're saying, and I totally get your kids have been probably run ragged this week.
What time are you thinking to go?
Like, I don't know, like 2:30.
Wow, okay, it's a little later than I would think, and I mean, John Paul, do you think 8:30 works for your group? Like, I know you're about the same age group and kind of been walking along the same schedule.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that sounds like a good time. I hear what you're saying about getting that early, but I mean, if she wants to go later, I mean, I don't know, like, do we need to go together?
Yeah, great question, John Paul. Well, I think what I think would be great, would be if, you know, I totally hear what you're saying about going different times and your kids need rest. So how about this? Since I would love to bilocate and be with you both, because I want to accompany you both so well. What I'm thinking is actually, why don't you and I chat and we can come up with a plan and I can give you some resources, because if you really don't think your kids can get ready and they need that rest, I totally understand. Also want to make sure that our other group is able to get there and get their spot, since that's what John Paul and his group want to do. But we want to make sure that we get your I give you the resources. So why don't you and I powwow and we can come up with like how to get there. I can tell, we can be in contact. We can talk through the tools, the resources, what path you should take, how to get there. And then actually, because we're going to be there early, we might be able to save you a spot. Or even, you know, help you kind of along the way to get there and give you like hints and tips. as
Really,
we're
like,
making that
you
way.
would save us some spot if we don't get there as early as you guys do.
Yeah, we'll try our best. I mean, we'd love to have you there with us then, but also like if we can get you a spot, we'll try our hardest to do that.
You know, that would be incredible. I mean, and I know that like getting there early is important, but like, I just really, really think 8:30 is gonna be pushing it. But like, how late do you think we could leave and still like at least have it be reasonable? Because I know we don't want to miss it. I mean, we came all this way.
Yeah, I would leave probably 2:30, might be really late. I'd be afraid that you're not gonna get any trams, so going a little earlier. So maybe not 8:30, but even like maybe like 10 or even maybe at latest 11 heading out that way, since we're a little closer than some of the other places.
Okay, I will talk to my chaperones and we can then talk together, and thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. And thank you for, I'm so sorry, we don't want to hold your group back.
Yeah, sounds
Yeah,
great.
maybe we can find a solution here.
Yeah, great. Sounds like a great plan. We'll talk for sure.
Sounds good.
So, we'd love to know like what everybody thought went well, what didn't go well, what would you have done, and what wouldn't you have done? And you can chime in about the first scenario and the execution of that, or the second one if you like something or didn't like something. Yeah, Ted.
I feel like it didn't go super well when you blame the group leader for not being able to control their kids.
You can't handle it. You under control. Not the best way to interact with the group leader and the most like hospitable and collaborative response to someone.
But compromise is good. So,
Yeah, you're on your own was funny too. Like, you're just like, well, if you're not going with us, then good luck. Yeah, let's see you next weekend.
Yeah.
And I thought Jenna's reaction, like she read the playbook. Wait, you're supposed to accompany us. You're gonna be there for us in your bed.
One thing I was thinking is that she was talking about, my kids need rest, and like, what you were saying, we're gonna get out there and they're gonna sit there and rest all afternoon. They're just gonna get the rest a little bit later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like helping people understand, like, yeah, you are gonna maybe like, yeah, it's gonna be a hurry up and sit for a while and hang out. They'll try to find the nap.
Bring that air back.
Yeah. A raft.
Online friends, any comments?
In the second scenario, I thought it was interesting and it's acting, but as soon as Stephanie validated Jenna's concerns, like the conversation felt so different. Like, I don't know, it felt like everybody was able to like talk through it. Whereas in the first one, it was like, just kind of shutting down the concerns. And then all of a sudden it was kind of a conflict or adversarial.
I think making your programs, like your group leaders feel heard and acknowledging that their experience is really helpful, just to be like, I hear you, and like, I'm listening and actively listening and hearing back what they're saying. I think it's a great point, Holly, to point out.
Yeah, and I think as I hope I demonstrated, like you doing that completely changes the tone of the rest of that conversation.
Maybe this isn't the time to ask this, but like, what would you do if like Jenna had actually swayed John Paul into saying like, oh, yeah, I'll leave later, you know, there's some like leaders that are so laid back, like he doesn't want to affect Jenna's group, so he might say like, okay, we can leave later, but you know in your heart as a, like, this isn't gonna be good. When do we really, because ultimately it's not our group, like it's their groups. Like, when do we stand our ground, or is that just a call we have to make to be like, you're an idiot, so when you leave later, I'm like, okay, I'll do it because this is what you want, you know, especially if you just had one group, like, I'm just gonna have one enormous group. What if the group leader's like, no, I wanna leave later, you know, like, when do we know when to push back, I guess?
Yeah, I think that, like, again, this is just a short snippet, but
Sure.
a few things Stephanie could have done in a longer conversation would be, one, I think digging a little bit deeper into the root problem of like, okay, tell me a little bit more about why you think your kids are tired and like really tired, or you actually maybe angry about something else, like just digging. Yeah. Are you hungry? Yeah. Like just digging a little bit deeper into like where they are currently, because maybe they're tired, like the kids are fine, right? Like that could be at play. So I think just digging a little bit deeper into the problem at hand would be one thing. Helping name what the actual issue is. And then two would be like, yeah, if they do truly agree, I think just being very clear to say like, okay, totally understand you want to do that alternate schedule. Just be aware, just from my professional background and what we know about World Youth Day, you know, I've been told to recommend to you to leave as early as possible. And you risk not finding a spot. So as long as you're aware of the risks and of what's at stake, like of course, you're the group leader, you decide which is best. So my job is to communicate with you what the pros and cons are and the risks are, and then you have to live with the consequences of your choice, whether it's for good or for bad, right?
I wanted to share when I went to the World Meeting of Families, we've been to the evening vigil thing and knew the spot, and we had a very coveted golden ticket for everybody in our group for the next day's special mass, which was like a place that we were supposed to be able to sit. It told us which gates to go into. So we thought, hey, we don't have to go so early. We know where we're going. We've got a special entrance. And we were so disappointed because our golden ticket meant nothing when we got to the place where they had to go through all your thing, you know, the security. Because there had been such a rush of people that had driven through the night and got there super early that took all the spots. Even and I mean, it was very providential later. It was very touching because I met one of the people who had been inside, who had driven through the night from Notre Dame to Philadelphia. It was like, we didn't even have tickets and we got to sit up front. I'm like, we never even got into the but she was so excited with their whole bus. So that is just to say that I learned from that experience. I mean, we waited in the line through communion at mass, and then we're told nobody else is getting in. Like, so we thought maybe we'll get to communion. And it was really funny because the reading was about like Moses. The first reading was about Moses giving the blessing, and there were people far away in the camp and in the desert. And some were saying they shouldn't get the blessing. They didn't get here. And he's like, no, the blessing is for everyone, even those outside the camp. And we're like, we get the blessing, guys.
I think it's a great experience like that to like draw upon when people decide they don't want to do something. Be like, okay, well, like this is John Paul's point, like you risk losing out on something. So just know what there's risk and reward along the way. So you have to understand what that's gonna look like.
Speaking of, they've also been there for several days, they've seen all the people just sort of like, look, what have you seen over the last few days? You've seen these thousands and thousands of people. They're all coming to one spot, so.
I think to Crystal's point too, there's something you said about this is their first time and they don't know, maybe again, like, yeah, you've seen these people, but you don't really understand what you're gonna be doing when you get there. Like maybe that's just not registered. Like I've done a vigil in Medjugorje. I didn't know what the heck I was going to. We just were told to start walking. So, and then, but I also was at Papal Mass in Philly, and we got there. Oh my gosh, it just, I was like, why are we getting here so early? I was so confused. And then when it filled, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And thank goodness somebody had the forethought to tell us, use the bathroom beforehand, like make sure that you bring something to do while you're sitting there. Because truly, like, otherwise I wouldn't have known that at all.
She took your seat.
Yeah. They were, I didn't say golden.
Yeah, and we're not just telling you all this, we're also telling your group leaders, so they do know that these are our recommendations, so they're not gonna be hearing this for the first time from you guys, but we do have a few minutes, and we wanted to kind of turn it to you and have you guys have an opportunity in your own like small group, so we're just gonna pair you kind of in threes, and you're gonna run through a couple of these scenarios, and the first, so like Iona, Sean, Kristen, you're gonna be together, Joni, Claire, and so forth, so moving around. Now the Nagys, if you wanna split up and join a different group, you're welcome to do that, or you can all play together. But what we're gonna do is, these are the three scenarios, and we want you to kind of, each person, there'll be 2 actors and 1 observer. So pick who wants to be the group leader, and who's gonna be the pilgrimage director, and who's gonna be the observer, and kind of run through them and kind of help guide you. So the first one is the World Youth Day Vigil. You arrive at the vigil site and the group leader looks to you for guidance. What do you do? So you're there at the site, you've got your spot. Now what? You're just kind of there for the afternoon. What do you do then? So give you about 2 minutes or so. Jenna, do you want to grab and join the NAG, John? And
I'm
then
gonna-
the online group, you're gonna be together. So I think it's like Andrew, Polly, and Molly. You guys can.
All
Great.
right.
Hey,
I'm happy to be the first pilgrimage director for that first one, if someone wants to be the group leader. For that
sure,
first
I can be the group
one.
leader.
So,
Sorry, you guys can you guys hear me okay?
yeah,
Okay.
Yes, I can.
Sorry. You guys hear me okay?
My connection is spotty, so sorry about that.
Yeah, I couldn't really hear what was, who's doing what?
I'll be the pilgrimage director and Holly is the group leader.
Okay.
Sorry, I think we both said at the same time. My connection is kind of in and out.
So I think mine might be too.
Oh no.
I think mine might be too.
Molly, it
Right.
might be easier if you go right now because mine's like having a hard time. So hopefully I can listen.
Okay, Andrew, is mine okay?
Yes,
Okay, so I'm the group leader?
yes. And great, Molly. So we're here at the vigil site. Yeah, we found our spot. I just want to remind you to, be protective of our space. Don't let anyone else unfairly take away what we've kind of claimed here.
Gotcha, okay. So what are all my people supposed to be doing right now? What are all my people supposed to be doing right now?
Yeah, Molly. So we so have probably about 6 or 7 hours still until the mass begins, until the prayer vigil begins. So yeah, it's a really great time now. Actually, if you want to have your small group leaders maybe get their groups together and maybe they can start off with some activity or they could have some free time for each person. It's also a great time for people to kind of take in the sight of this space filling up, and if they want to kind of pray with that, kind of this amazing gathering of the church, it's a really good opportunity.
So is it okay if people like wander around? Like, can they go check out the other areas?
Yeah, I think that'd really be up to you, Molly. I assume we're working with youth here. I assume we're working with. Sorry for that echo. Yeah, Molly, if you're chaperones, it'd be totally up to you and your chaperones if you want to have them, if they want to make little small groups, and it'd be totally fine to, I think, go exploring a little bit because we do have so many hours until the vigil begins, but we just want to make sure that everyone is back here by 6 o'clock at the latest. As long as everyone knows that, and as long as they tell you where they're going.
Great. am I supposed to be like antagonistic, or are we just like playing like I kind of didn't hear all the
I don't think
instructions
so
about-
necessarily.
Okay. Okay,
Um,
cool.
But also, I guess that's a great question though, Holly and Molly. If you want to, I assume people can like go exploring when you get to your spot. I would imagine.
I don't think so. I think. I mean, I would imagine because like
Yeah,
if they go to the bathroom or if they have to go somewhere else, like they won't sit in the same place for the whole time, but probably
Right.
not far
yeah,
So
no, I
just
mean,
to address, oh, go ahead.
would be my guess.
yeah, I was gonna say I've
I don't
been
know what you're
to
thinking.
two of the vigils. Can you hear me? Still feel like I'm like echoing. But yeah, people are free to walk around, like usually as long as there's like enough people that stay in the kind of the area of your group, like to kind of watch it and like keep the space and stuff like that. It's usually, yeah, people are gonna have to go to the bathroom. And I would say
Right.
like, you know, of course, the buddy system as they go around.
So just to add to about my 2 cents to your question, Andrew, what I usually do, when usually in group settings, tend to be the one that likes to explore. So I always want to know when is the next time or like stuff like things on the schedule in case you do move, just so that they're aware that you were there until a certain time. So I would just communicate saying we are here until this time. We would prefer to stay together. But if you need to like go to the bathroom, grab some food, we are here until this certain time, and just communicate that in case like they overdo like the exploring, or just say like you should be back at this time if you do intend to go off.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thanks.
No problem.
Cool. Do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I can try. Sorry about my Wi-Fi. Anybody, let's see. Check in group leader. Well, no. Anybody want to do it with me?
Sure, I'd be happy to go again. Do you want to be the group leader or the pilgrimage director?
I can be the pilgrimage director this time.
Sure. Okay, Holly, so we are, it seems like we have a big block of free time coming up. Yeah, I just wonder if you had any input on kind of how we should, how I should go about making sure I know where all of my pilgrims are in this huge block of free time. Because I know a lot of people want to go exploring Lisbon. They want to go to all sorts of different places. But how should I make sure I keep track of them? How should I make sure I keep track of them?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for just coming to me, Andrew. I think that they just experienced so much during our Rise Up. So some free time would be really great. Our next time to leave here is about 4:00, as we're gonna get ready to head to our next event. So just make sure that we communicate that to them. I have a couple of options in this area that they might be interested in. We have the Festival of Joy. There's reconciliation available. I know we had talked about a couple of local pilgrimages. We could grab on some of those if we want to do our group invitation to one of the local churches. So I'd be really curious which of those you think would be best for the group right now.
Yeah, thanks for all those, Holly. Yeah, I feel like some people want to do a sort of a little bit different thing on their own potentially. So maybe kind of a smattering of all those things. So I think I should just have them like go off in like small groups and make sure they have at least like 3 or 4 people, and just kind of let them do whatever they want to then among those options.
I'm assuming this is a young adult group. So yeah, I think that'd be good. I think we just make sure that they know the time that we need to be back here And just make sure that if they need any other support or resources, that we'll be right here. And that, yeah, I'm going to be here for the rest of the time. So let's make sure that we communicate that to them. And if that sounds good to you, that sounds good to me.
Awesome. Yeah. I'll just.
Any thoughts, any feedback?
Sorry, I'm also like with my kids right now. Right. And I have some divided attention. But it sounded good to me. With my kids right now. So.
No worries.
But it sounded good to me.
Oh, I think they're coming back. Yeah.
And thank you. We are getting close. Well, we are at 9 o'clock. We don't want to be respectful, but I feel like I sign out. But we do just want to take a couple of minutes. Here's like general themes real fast of like, what were things that you're like, that was what someone said and that was really helpful, or their demeanor about this was really great, or like, I need to remember to do X, Y, or Z when I'm working with a group leader. Hunter.
One thing we did in our scenarios, the person playing the pilgrimage director each time, when consulting with the group leader, like offer like a handful of options for like what can we do, like, oh, you tried this through this, like what do you think? Just like kind of giving them different choices and like having them kind of like have ownership and build.
Yeah, I think that's great because it also shows that you're prepared with the next few options as well, which is great to kind of have like a list of opportunities for each event or day ready to go for yourself to list off. And then great job with the Hunter on naming like ownership of the group leader. You know, they help them to feel like they've got decision-making power and that they have decision-making power. Great job. Any other either online or virtual people take like 2 more comments?
I think Joan had a really good point, when we were talking about, the last one. She had said in her options as the group leader, hey, like, you know, if we need to step back, we mean this, but you know, something to also consider is we could possibly do stations across ourselves someplace else together and connect spiritually while it's going on. And I think it's important to remember that there might be something that you miss, or you might just be outside the gate of something because they did decide that they wanted to leave later for one thing or another, and there's disappointment in that. But to come back together and remember, like, just because you're not physically like right at the place you want to be, it doesn't mean you can't connect spiritually still. So I think that was a really good point to remember. Great.
Good question on the number 3, because we were kind of wondering how often is it an either or, like we stay or we go, or can we split groups to where some will take, okay, this group wants to go back versus wants to stay.
Yeah. That's what we talked about. We decided upon in our scenario that like, yeah, the group leader was gonna take one group and then the program director was gonna.
And sometimes even in those situations, it's like, okay, we're not gonna go in right now. We're gonna go take an hour and sit in the shade or go grab a coffee and come back, but you can divide the groups as well. That's a good point. So.
The other thing we were talking about in the vigil in the first one was that you all get there as a group and you get your spot, but don't let everybody just get up and disappear because your spot will go away. You have to like let people go in groups, like, okay, 4 people go out or 2 people go do a recon mission as to where's the bathroom, where's the water, where's this, come back. But if a bunch of people disperse all at the same time, you're not gonna have that spot because it's gonna be a first shot.
Yeah, people don't always respect safe spots.
Yeah, like squatters, right?
Like, no one have gotten there early, gotten up early to get there to just lose the spot because everybody was off the others.
Molly, Holly, Andrew, anything to add in your conversations or any of your expertise? No. Great. Well, I think one thing I would encourage you to do is to think about these scenarios over the next couple of weeks before our next meeting and think like, okay, what are those things that fall in the went well, don't do or do differently? So that you can start coming up with yourself like a playlist. And then we will revisit these again and talk a little bit more about these at the beginning of next time as well.
You have like a nice little list of things that have worked well to do while you were waiting in those like the long hours. We came up with a few ideas, but I mean, just so that we have those kind of in our Rolodex, I mean, obviously it'd be like free time and chatting and maybe rosary, or we have some sharing about our catechesis experiences or what excursions people would enjoy, you know, things like that.
No, that's great. We'll definitely add that to our like checklist document and add it as a resource. Wonderful thing.
The last thing I was gonna mention would be, in the third situation, I mean, the one time where you definitely like just need to make decisions is when pillar of safety are obviously a given, but we should also name it, right? So if the group leader is just adamant, like, no, we are staying here because we needed this spot, but you clearly see somebody like just totally getting, you know, heat exhaustion, and be like, no, like this person needs attention, like, I don't care what you're saying, like, we need to get them, we need to get, you know, medical help right away, so.
Yeah.
You know, if that happens, like, are we just responsible for arranging their transportation, like, to the hospital or to like, whatever, like, health tents there are, or like, do we, like, what's our role in that?
Stay tuned for session number
Okay.
3.
Reason to come back. Well, thank you everybody for participating and talking through those things. We really appreciate it. And again, like I said, we'll come back to these next time. We just wanted to tell you some quick updates real quick. So reminders, obviously, if you haven't completed your Yuli tasks, if you haven't submitted your background checks, please do that ASAP. We're gonna give you a link to check out the Couch to Vigil. We'll send it to you in a follow-up email. It's a great resource that Jody put together. If you haven't found your walking shoes, get going, find them, start walking, get used to doing that many steps in a day, break them in. And start gathering your World Youth Day items. Like I said, we'll be having, as we mentioned, a pack and prep, you'll be part of the pack and prep meeting or viewing it, but we're also gonna have a packing webinar, which we're gonna talk about. Our next training is on Monday, the 10th. And we're gonna be talking about how to execute crisis and conflict management. So get ready of more role playing, and be able to find resources in order to address issues and concerns. And then again, like we said, when you arrive, we're gonna help you get situated into the city as well. And then here's your homework for next time. It will be in a follow-up email, so don't worry, you don't have to write it down, don't have to remember. You will have your meeting with Jenna and I by that time. The forthcoming crisis management plan you'll have, so you can guys get ready to review and do scenarios with those. Join the pack and prep meeting on June 27th. And then if you're able to attend the pack and prep meeting for your group. And as always, the resources that we'll be adding and will be your holy grail can be found at that link at the bottom of the page. So we're here if you have any questions. We know some of you need to head out, but we really appreciate your time. But we'll be here for any questions. Feel free to hang out. If you're doing people, you're welcome to stay and ask questions. Like I said, we'll be here. But again, thank you for all your time, your energy, the commitment you've shown to us and your programs. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out anytime. And I are here. And then John Paul will be helping to manage people when we're in country as well. So great. Anything that we can answer right now, or feel free to jet off if you need to.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Chris. Yeah, you're good. Yeah. It's Thursday morning or Thursday morning. Look at the kind of calendar. Actually, yeah.
Bye, friends.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Sean, so that's why you know, I'm not a lot. No, they're yeah.
I've already started.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's. All right. Yeah.
We just saw.
Like,
Yeah.
And then.
Thank you.
Questions, like. Like.